What is up? Welcome back. Happy Wednesday.
Yes. Happy Rex Manning Day.
Happy Rex Manning Day.
Nobody knows what that reference is.
Oh, Rexy, you're so sexy.
That is from Empire Records.
Yes.
Back in the 90s.
The best.
Cult classic.
The best.
Yes. We're showing our age, but that's okay.
Fun fact, Mike had a huge crush on Liv Tyler.
Wow. You're going to throw me under the bus
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
did. I
there
did.
You go.
I did.
There you go.
And that's the only reason this Puerto Rican listen to Aerosmith.
I was like obsessed with the Aerosmith days where Alicia Silverstone was in like all the videos.
I know you were, yeah.
She was like a 90s girl icon.
Yeah.
And what this is so embarrassing. Me and this girl that I was really good friends with in middle school, we used to try to like emulate them, like wear the same clothes as them, do the same things as they did in those videos, like crying and crazy and all that.
Yeah.
And Eddie Furlong was in one of them too. I think we mentioned him in a
We
previous
did.
episode, but he was
I'm kind of done with your Eddie Furlong obsession.
But there were a lot of people in those 90s movies, if you think about it, like Empire Records, Dazed and Confused, Can't Hardly Wait, like
Right.
all those, like the stars that are in them when you watch back now, hilarious. Also, when you watch them back now, you're like, this movie could never come out right now.
Yeah, no.
Everyone would get canceled so fast.
So true.
But we're like, I love it.
Yeah, I know. And now looking at them in like movies now, like Alicia Silverstone is like the mom in Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
When I saw that, I was like, we are so old. She's the mom now.
Yeah,
Is this where we're at?
This is where we are.
She was an icon.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So Rex Manning Day, why don't you all just fade away?
Fade away. Speaking of old, like this transition, we're in a season right now. This is what I want to talk about in this episode. We're in a season where our boys are getting older, and we're realizing that there's a difference between care and control.
And what's going to happen in this episode is I'm getting on the couch.
You are getting on the couch.
We're putting me on the couch because it was a week or so ago. I had texted you were away. I think it was when you were in Ohio.
Yeah.
And I texted you and I was like, I've been reflecting and I've come to the conclusion that there are so many times when I say that it's just because I care.
Yeah.
It's not. It's because I'm a control freak.
Because you're a control freak.
And that was such a hard pill to swallow, but I was like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. We're in this season, and so explain to everybody what season we're in so they know.
Okay, so we have two teenage boys, and actually, well, we're recording this the end of January. Mm-hmm. I don't know when this is going to air, but on February 5th, Chase turns 18.
18.
Which, like, I know I only came into his life when he was 10, but those 8 years flew.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like Thanos.
Yeah.
His childhood is gone.
Gone, right. 50% of it gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's wild. And the more your kids grow up, the less control you have.
Yeah.
As much as you may want to try to like really like have a firm grasp on it, you don't. And that brings up all sorts of emotions, and it puts the mirror in front of your face almost, like you realize like, oh crap, I got issues. And is it more me or is it more them?
Right.
Ugh. But yeah, so that's he got his license, he's going to college in the fall, like all these things are just really making us aware of the control we don't have.
Yep.
And how many times we try to disguise that as care.
Yep.
And I think it's helping us with Hunter. It's hard because they're different kids. Chase is very independent, very street smart. Hunter's more, he's still immature at times, but he's not as aware. Like if Chase is going to go to school in New York City, and that does not worry me at all. But if we put Hunter in the middle of New York City, he wouldn't last a day. He's so oblivious at times.
Sometimes I feel like Hunter's the kid. I love him to death, but sometimes he's the kid. Like if a van pulls up and be like, "Hey kid, I got some candy," he's like, "Hell yeah, let's get some candy."
100%, 100%. He would jump. He would dive into the van, whereas Chase would be like, "Nah, bro, you need to go." So. I think it's helping us, the awareness that's coming up now, it's helping us with Hunter because like, it's helping me to release control in a lot of instances. But I wish I would have had a head start on that.
Yeah.
You know, I know we've said multiple times, like, we're not raising children, we're raising adults.
Right.
And I think we came to that conclusion a little too late in life. So if you are a parent of young kids, you're raising adults. Be aware of that.
Yeah.
Because we recently, when we were going away for the night, Hunter was at his dad's and Chase wanted to stay home by himself. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, and Mike was thinking about it. I was like, are you crazy? He's like, Jill, he's going to be going away to school in less than a year.
Right.
And we expect him to live on his own and take care of himself.
In
like,
New York City.
In New York City. Like, how could we not leave him alone overnight in Marlton? Like, first of all, what's he going to do?
Right.
Like, okay, he might have a couple friends over, but like, we also trust him. Like, I don't think he would have a blowout party, raging kegger at our house.
Right.
But like, we have to be able to trust him, because how can we feel like we've prepared him as parents to go off and be an adult if we don't give him the freedom or opportunity to do so?
Right.
And that was terrifying. But we let him, and nothing happened. Imagine that.
Look at that.
Imagine that.
Look at that.
And even if it did, like, we have all the technology in the world, like, find my iPhone, we know where he's at. Ring doorbell, we know who's coming in the house. Like,
right.
all these things that our parents didn't have. But it's just, you know, you mask it with the, what happens if something happened to him? What happens if someone broke into the house? What happens if this? And we disguise it as because we care. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's just we're a control freak.
Control freak, yeah.
And yeah.
And control freaks think they hide it well, but they don't.
You mean, like, I don't hide it well?
You do not hide it well. It's so obvious. And listen, like, as we're putting you on the couch and throwing you on the bus at the same time.
Yeah.
I need to let everyone know that I struggle with this as well. But somebody has to be the stable person in this podcast today.
Wow. Wow.
So I get it. I get it. You know, when I went through my first divorce, I went to a counselor. And ironically, it was in Manhattan, and this dude would just sit there and just nod his head and go, yeah. Well, how does it make you feel? And da-da. And then he did this hand gesture that would piss me off every single time, because he was working on my issues, and he would put his hands out in front of him, and he would just go like this without saying a word.
He's slowly opening his hand, like in a gesture of release.
Yeah, and he would just do that, and I would look at him, and he would go, "You have to learn to let go. You have to learn to let go." And I would want to just like grab the clock off the wall, throw it at him. Like, I just wanted to get violent, because I'm like, I'm not here to pay you just to tell me you need to learn to let go.
Just tell me what to do and how to fix it.
Yeah, I want to fix this.
Don't just tell me to let go.
But that was the healing of just learning to not be in control. And I learned this principle, and I think this is the principle that's going to help everyone out. And I don't want to alienate people who are listening that aren't parents. I think this works if you're a leader, boss, friend. Learn the difference between care and control. And all because something is under your care, this is the big principle of the podcast, all because something is under your care doesn't mean it should be under your control. And to learn the difference with it, because that's where we fail most of the time. We fail when we're not properly raising our kids and exposing them to the things they need exposure to, because we can't childproof life. We can't continue to childproof life. Right? You would, and you're doing a way better job, but you would constantly look at Hunter's phone almost every night, right?
Why? Like, you're really throwing me under the bus, huh? No, I did. I would look at his phone every night to see what he was doing, to see what was going on. And 6 months ago, I stopped doing that. I haven't looked at his phone in, I can't even tell you how long, because like, they also deserve privacy, you know? But me scanning his phone every night to find out what's going on, all that did was make me more anxious and crazy, rather than making me feel closer to him. And I've come to realize, as they've gotten older, I'd rather hear it from them, in those moments that we talked about previously, where they confide in us and stuff, because then you're actually finding out what's going on, rather than like reading it and insinuating whatever, inflating whatever crazy story in your head, like, this person said this, and it was like, it's actually like an inside joke. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
yeah, and when we create that space for them to have some level of privacy, the byproduct of that is that they start confiding in us. And sometimes Chase tells me stuff, I'm like, yo,
way too much.
I'm good. I didn't need to know that, but thank you for not having secrets.
Yeah.
But I didn't need to know that. But I think it's a result of us just what's that? When you're walking a dog, they have the
retractable
leash. I think
Yeah.
as a kid gets older, you have to start just like let it go out of the spindle a little bit and give them a longer and longer leash. Because I think ultimately the difference between care and control, right? How would you define the difference in the definition between care and
I
control?
don't know. That's why I'm on the couch.
That's why you're on the couch.
Tell me.
So I think
Don't just do this.
let go. Just
Tell me.
I think when we always have to care, but we're very rarely in control.
Yeah.
All right. And so we have to know the difference, because caring means this: as a parent, as a leader, as a supervisor, whatever. My care is that as I'm caring for you, I'm helping you. And you can't help someone and control them at the same time.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
So when I say helping, you have to serve them. So everything that I do, I'm serving you with the space and the opportunity to grow. I'm serving you with the opportunity to increase what I would call your pain threshold. And we're dealing with a lot of young leaders right now, especially under the umbrella of church, right? Where some of them, like, they can't handle life. I know I sound like an old fart right now, but
No,
they just can't. They can't handle disappointment. They can't handle. It is so devastating. I understand it hurts, but it is so
It's debilitating.
Yeah, and I think it's because think about the evolution of parenting. Like you and I growing up, back in the 80s and 90s, like I was in second grade in Atlantic City, New Jersey, right? So it's like the Las Vegas of the East Coast, and my mom would put some money in my pocket, and I would walk 4 blocks by myself, second grade, city blocks, by the way. Then stop at the deli, order my own lunch, get a nice little sub with the amazing lunch meat of the East Coast, right? Then walk to school, and then come back all by myself, and then come home to an empty household because my mom didn't come home, get off of work until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, right? Second grade. Meanwhile, fast forward to 2022, we were bugging out about letting Chase stay home alone at the age of 17.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think like we rob them when we don't give them the space to do that. Maybe some people are like, oh, I would never let my second grader. I'm not saying to do that.
Yeah.
My mom was a little more, she was hood.
No, but society always overcorrects too, because think about it, like, because we had such freedom, like in grade school, you would go out, I would jump on my bike, ride my bike all around Burlington. My parents had no idea where I was.
Right.
I just knew I had to be home by the time the streetlights were on, or by the time my mom screamed my name on the front porch.
Yep.
We would never allow our children to do that. Like we came home off the bus. There was no one home. And because we experienced all that, so now us as parents, we want to do the opposite. We want to overcorrect.
Right.
And we want to helicopter, and we want to do all these things. And that's not healthy either.
No.
And it's just interesting, the cycle of life.
Right. And we're not letting them have the space to be disappointed, experience some heartache, experience the repercussions of this is what happens when you show up late to somewhere, or the repercussions, and we want to buffer them.
This is what happens when you don't practice and you don't prioritize, and then you don't make the team.
You don't make the team, right?
And it's not the response of, well, the team's already picked, and it's politics, and it's the
Right.
favoritism, it's all that. No, maybe it's just they
You
weren't
didn't work hard
prepared,
enough.
or they're not good enough.
Yeah. Yikes.
And that's
Right.
hard. That's a hard thing to talk your kids through. And we've said all those excuses.
Right.
But are we really helping them? Is that really care?
No, it's not.
They
'Cause
can't handle disappointment. They can't handle failure.
Yep.
It's like when your kid falls when they're little.
Yep.
And there's 2 reactions to that. There's the reaction of, you're good, get up, walk it off, you're fine. Or
Yeah.
there's the reaction, oh my goodness, are you okay? And that's when the kid cries more. When you're making them seem like something's wrong or devastating, rather than teaching them how to stand up and shake it off.
Right. Yep. I used to do this thing, and people would look at me like I was a horrible person, but I used to ask Chase, like, are you hurt or are you injured when he fell, right? Because to me, that helped safeguard me into creating that space for him to grow and increase his pain capacity, right? So that helped me not be the callous parent, like, you good, get up, throw some dirt on it and walk.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
are you hurt or are you injured? Because if you're injured, if it's bleeding, if it needs stitches, like, we need to tend to it.
Yeah.
But if you're just hurt, if it's just going to be a bruise, sometimes you get bruises in life, bruh. Like, learn to walk it off, learn to, you know what I mean? So are you hurt or are you injured? And so, but I want to create the space to help you increase your pain capacity. I want you to experience some level of disappointment so that when you're an adult, when disappointment comes, there's some exposure to it. You know,
Yeah.
we I think it's even wise, like it's almost like immunity, right? Like, you know, like it's good to let your kids play in the dirt every now and then because it builds up their immunity, because you don't want them to, like, if you just shelter them their whole lives, when they get to college, they're not going to be able to handle certain things, right? And that's why we see it all the time. They get to college and they wow out. Right, I'm pointing at Jill right now.
Hand.
Right now, you were sheltered because you were punished, not because your mom was a helicopter parent.
Yeah, no, my parents weren't helicopter parents. I was just a bad kid. I found trouble any chance. I found trouble, and I was stupid about it too. Like, I always got caught. Like, just dumb. So I was grounded a lot. Totally warranted. But when I got to college, I had all this freedom and I wilded out.
Yeah.
And then my sophomore year, I was home in community college because it was like, we tried that. Didn't work. You failed.
Right.
Figure it out. And it's something, honestly, like I live with to this day. And I'm glad that my parents didn't make excuses for the fact of why I essentially failed out of college my freshman year. They put the responsibility on me.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've carried with me. And like, I do regret that. And I did learn my lesson from that, because then I went to community college and I had 4.0. Like, I really got it together. But yeah, it's an example of you need to figure it out, you know.
Yep.
So
yep, because if not, they're gonna wall out.
Yeah.
If you don't help them learn how to steward and be responsible for their independence and liberty while they're being supervised. Right.
Yeah.
We want them to. It's not gonna. There's no such thing as a switch. Like, all of a sudden you're an adult. Now you got to be responsible.
Yeah.
Like, but before that, I'm the one cutting the cutting the crust off your sandwiches and doing this and doing that. Like, we have to, again, just we're serving them with the opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't just keep them safe.
Yeah.
Because your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there.
Yeah.
Nothing grows there. So let them grow.
Yeah.
So it's always under your care. It's not under your control.
Yeah.
And serve them with the opportunity to increase their pain capacity.
And with that, even from a non-parenting standpoint, like, as a boss, like, you may want to micromanage your employee and get updates on every single step of the task that they're working on. But like, what would it look like if you were like, this is the job, these are the bullet points.
Right.
However you get there, obviously ethically, get there. But like, if you're like, well, what did you do this? Did you do that? Da-da-da. Like, you're not allowing that person to grow. You're not allowing that person to thrive and feel a sense of ownership because you're over their shoulder 24/7.
Right.
Even something for anyone older listening, as your parents get older, your parents may have opinions about what they want to do with their life and care they want to receive. And as their child, it could be really hard because you want them to do what you want them to do.
Good point.
And that's really hard to navigate. But it also teaches you compassion, and it teaches you just how to truly unconditionally care for them regardless of what the end result looks like.
Right.
So there's so many different aspects of that you could stem off of, rather than just like us talking about our teenage kids.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned this, because not only are we letting go of our kids, there's this other transition in life where not so much our parents, but at least my grandmother right now, at the time of this recording.
I didn't want to throw you under the bus.
But it's true. My grandmother is in the hospital, and she has a DNR, which means I do not resuscitate. And she had an incident last week. Now, my family, they're a bunch of, formerly Spanish Catholics, so they had kids at a young age. So when you say grandmother, you might think she's really, really old. But
yeah, my grandparents are no longer living.
Right. So my grandmother's only 77, right? I know that's a full life.
No, but that's, for a 42-year-old to have a 77-year-old grandparent, it's young, and most people our age don't have living grandparents anymore. So
right. But she had an incident last week where, and my mother was out of town. And so the grandkids were left making some decisions for her, but they brought her back and she was upset. She was mad at us because she was like, why did you bring me back? I have a DNR. She's ready to go. And some of us were just like, we're not ready to let you go. And I'm like, we can't make her decisions.
Yeah.
We can't.
Yeah.
She's a grown
she's 77. At peace with it.
Yeah, she's at peace. She's ready to go. She feels like she lived the full life. But again, it's the letting go process. And I think it again reminded me of the principle of leading someone doesn't mean you control them either. So if you want to put it still under the paradigm of like being a boss or that kind of, on top of just parenting, leading means that you have a voice in the decision making, where control is you're the decision maker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and in that case, like your grandmother had called you and asked you like your thoughts and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you have no control over the decision that she makes.
None whatsoever.
Same thing with our kids. We can say anything we want to them, but the second they walk out the door, they're making their own decisions.
Right.
And sometimes those decisions will please us, and sometimes those decisions will grieve us. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, I've been hanging out with you too much. And it's true. And we have to be okay with that.
You have to be okay with
because essentially you're training them up to be adults, and you're there just as you're like, what's the term I'm looking for? You're a guide almost. You know what I mean? Like there are times I'm 42 years old and like one of the kids is sick. I'm calling my mom and I'm like, what should I do? Or like something, and I'm calling my dad. What do you think? You know, and they're there to guide me. And you don't worry any less as your children get older, but you're always there. And again, sometimes the decisions will please us and sometimes they'll grieve us. Put that on a shirt. Let's go.
Let's go. No, it's so true. So true. And I think to wrap up our time, just to remind us that it's all because it's under your care, it's not under your control. I think it's our responsibility to serve people with the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Leading people doesn't mean controlling people,
yeah.
right? I have a voice in the decision maker's life, but I'm not the decision maker. And those decisions might, go ahead, say it. Those decisions
please us, and they may grieve us.
And they might grieve us, but we have to learn just to be accessible and to be there. Care requires a lot of patience.
Yes.
Control only requires pride.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
And so like we're prideful. We feel like we could always do it better. We feel like we know better. But then there's sometimes like if we let go of control, we might learn something.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think control, and this is something, if we leave you with anything to like marinate on, what is the source of the control? Because for me, I say, I'm sorry, I care, but the source of control for me a lot of times is anxiety. It's codependency, something fear. I really struggle with, fear. So if you find yourself in these moments of where you're like grasping for control in a situation, take a beat and like really process where that's coming from, because there's always an underlying issue.
Yep.
And you could put a Band-Aid on anything, but if you're not attacking that underlying issue, you're not finding healing there, and you're never going to move forward, and you're just going to repeat that cycle of control disguised as care.
Yep.
And then you're not going to grow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good. We're gonna end it right there. You're dropping bombs.
You're welcome.
You went from going from the couch to the pulpit. Good job.
But we hope you guys enjoyed this. We hope it was helpful. Give us some feedback. We always post a reel or a TikTok of a point that we thought really marinated. Give us some feedback on that. Tell us if it's something you struggle with, how. Speaking of Instagram and TikTok, you can check us out on Instagram at Mike Rosato at Jillian Rosato, on TikTok at Mike Rosato at Jillian.Rosato. Dun, dun, dun. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We're on all the podcasting platforms you can find. We're also on YouTube if you want to see the video. Hey. And if you are on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave us a little comment, share it with a friend, share it in your stories, and we'll be back next Wednesday. Did I nail it?
No, you nailed it.
Crushed it.
You crushed it.
Boom.
Boom.
All
awesome.
right. Bye, guys.
See ya.